All right, Mike with That's Good Enough For Me.com, doing our season 2 Who's Zoomin' Who series. I'm with Sulynn and Todd from Propagandhi. How are y'all doing?
Good.
Yeah, pretty good.
Thank you guys so much for taking the time for me today. First things first, I'm just trying to ask everybody kind of what they're working on during the pandemic. Well, shows aren't obviously happening. Sulynn, I'll go first. I'll ask you first. I know that you were doing guitar lessons. What else is going on in your life?
Well, for one, I realized that quarantine and my life are not that different. Like, at least when we're not like doing shows. So yeah, just teaching a bunch, practicing, writing. That's about it, really. There's not much else to do. I mean, things are kind of open around here, but not really taking many chances. So a whole lot of that.
Yeah, I've caught on that it either fits people's lifestyles very well or not at all. There's no gray area.
Yeah, like I think it has its point where I start to go crazy and need to kind of walk around, just being stuck in one position for a while,
And where are you located right now?
In New York.
Okay. I'm in Nebraska, so we're seeing more and more cases every single day now. And everybody here has decided that it was a hoax and that it's not a thing. So I'm especially at home, more so than I was, a couple of months ago, which is boring. But Todd, how about you?
Pretty good. There's not much COVID here in the Pegs, so I can I don't go anywhere anyway, really, but I can go outside a lot. It's kind of so that's pretty good. And then, just playing my guitar. Got a little pedal so I can jam with myself. And, whatever. Just making riffs, putting them on my little tape, letting it pile up to the thousands without organizing it properly.
Yeah, I was going to ask, how do you sift through something like that?
Well, painfully. You just kind of... Yeah, that's the problem, really. For me, organizing stuff is harder than actually making it. Mm-hmm. My organizational skills on computers are kind of shitty, so just end up with tons of riffs. But yeah.
Well, that actually kind of ties into a question that I had written down that I wanted to ask. First of all, Victory Lap is so good, and it's survived several years of a lot of listening. So great job there, both of you. I kind of wanted to talk about not only how you dig through instrumentals and collect riffs, because obviously there's a lot of time that exists between records, but just subject matter. I was a high schooler when Today's Empires came out, and that's how I found out about COINTELPRO. I remember I went to my rural Nebraskan history teacher even, and I said, I think you had printed an essay on your website or something. And I said, hey.
I think it was in the booklet in the record.
There you go.
Yeah.
So I presented it to my teacher, and I said, why aren't we talking about this? This is history. And he said, it's Nebraska. So it's like, we don't want to talk about this stuff.
Weird.
But... that's pretty standard Midwest United States, is to suppress anything that might be remotely not Christian and white. But for me,
that is Christian and white, probably.
Yeah.
Not a victory.
Yeah, but something that's been valuable about being a Propagandhi fan for so long is, and fast forward to the release of Laughing Stock on Spotify, the B-side from the record, The Killing of Shadain Aron. I found myself, in my 30s on a computer doing research based off of a few lines from a Propagandhi song, and it took me all the way back to high school, just how long your songs have been educating me about really important things I need to know about. And so I was curious, how long do you hold on to a subject matter? You say, I definitely need to write about that. But if you're not putting out records every 6 months or to a year, how long do you hold on to these feelings?
Yeah, that's another little obstacle sometimes. It's like, you know what I mean? You have a song and you're like, well, who knows when this record's coming out anyway? But it's hard to say. I don't know. Because like kind of the harder part for me is like you've like to make something interesting, because really the ideas are the same each time, right? The base ideas about justice and equality and trying to help people out, but it's like, how do I say this in an interesting way that's not the same as the other records, you know? So it kind of gets incrementally harder because you've already set up all these things, and you also are trying not to make it cheesy or cliche or try to sound like you're you know, trying to lead some parade or you know, some march, or you know what I mean? Like, so many things get heard so many times. Like, how can I say this interesting? That's my own take. That's not like reading the paper and taking the headlines, you know, or you know what I'm saying? Like a song has to be your own. It has to be your own emotions and feelings. So to me, that's harder than like thinking how it's going to be like relevant later, you know? Because really, if it's right and it's the right feelings, it doesn't matter if it was 5 years ago or today, you know. Like if someone like gets murdered by the cops, they were still murdered, whether it's 5 years from now or right now, you know. So it'll still resonate because the world will still be shitty, I assume.
Truth, yeah.
I mean, even from like before I was in the band, like from a listening aspect, like I can relate to the fact that you knew that some of these like specifics were like kind of time stamped. And I think it's like with music, I don't mind that. And there's not a bad thing about like remembering this event in the hopes like this, hopefully this doesn't happen again. But unfortunately, a lot of these things become reruns with just swapping out details or people, you know? So I think it is like has broader implications that has a thread with continuous issues. So
in a lot of cases, I think that I mean, Fuck the Border is more relevant today than it was when it was released.
Yeah, in a way it is, yeah.
And that's interesting too, to see how things can come full circle. You know, like it's like has almost new meaning. Like it like that's more relevant to like current times, you know, in a surprising way. Like I think that's really cool about how the songs can morph.
We're now like on what's the name of the new record?
Victory Lap.
Yeah, Victory Lap. On Victory Lap, there's you know, like the part about like building the wall, and like at the time you're like, okay, everyone's building the wall because you don't want people to get in, and literally just a couple years later, the wall is like no one wants Americans to come to Canada or Mexico because we don't want the disease because it's all been handled so crazy, you know. So it's suddenly like the song literally came true in 3 years, you know. It's kind of wild, you know.
Yeah, that's wild. It's like weird poetic justice for those other places, you know.
Yeah.
Like unfortunately, it sucks. But at the same time, it's like sometimes you reap what you sow, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And I've been talking, you know, I've done 10 of these now. You're the 11th. And I talked to band members that miss each other and can't practice or write songs in person out of fear of the virus. Sulynn, you literally cannot go practice with your bandmates where they live right now. So there's something to be said for that. Yeah.
That's, you know, I think the side of this whole quarantine, there's a part that's like, okay, like, you know, maybe it's not bad to like take a step back, even though I feel like I'm not that relaxed or anything, like things actually can be chaotic being at home so much, but that's besides the point. There's like a nice side of like, you know, spending this much time with your family, even like, you know, it's like kind of like, who knows how you'll see this time in the future. Like, hey, that was really nice. We got like maxed out time with each other. Like I think about that sometimes. Mm-hmm. There is a side where, and it's really started to hit me, like I'd say within the last few weeks, where I'm like, fuck, I miss my friends, you know, I miss like the people who like help shape me as a person, and like I feed off their vibe, like as like a healthy, like there's something that it does to me, like is like in my mental health, you know, like, and not only obviously the music side, but just even just having that kind of bouncing off each other's vibes. Like it's just not having that is like, you just kind of, and not knowing when you can have it is like very scary, and kind of, those are like the times when I'm like, this sucks and this is crazy.
Yeah.
So
mine
hard,
is,
you know,
I still work in, you know, an 8 to 5 in an IT department at a software company. So I just keep receiving these projected emails where we're going to talk about maybe getting people back in July. And then of course in June, it's going to be September. And then we just got the email that it's going to be October. Now I'm prepared for, I started with the company in November or October 28th or something. So I will have worked more time from home at my jobs than, you know, actually physically there, which is just very strange.
Yeah.
But enough about software. I do have a couple little super nerdy Propagandhi questions I wanted to ask. Sulynn, I was going to start with you. Who played the solo on the bridge to Cop Just Out of Frame? Was that you or Chris?
Chris did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
It's
awesome.
Yeah, it's a really tasty, like yeah, just a tasteful solo. Like it's, you know, it's like it shreds in little parts, but it's just, I don't know, it's a great one. Phrase really well, like it.
Does he sing it and play it at the same time?
Yeah, he does. It's awesome.
That was something that, I mean, we're talking, you know, 1999, around the time that I started listening to the band, way before YouTube, finding little horrible bootleg videos of him singing and playing things that a lot of people can't. And I think that he's really underappreciated for his ability to do that.
Oh yeah. He's, I also find like you can watch almost anything. He's rarely ever anything sounds off key or like flat or sharp, you know, it's just somehow he's doing all that really tight too, you know, like, yeah, I always appreciate him, you know, and just the way his chords sound so solid, just, yeah, kind of like every now and then he'll say something, you know, because like sometimes he feels like he can't do something, you know, that he's been trying to do since he's a kid. I'm just like, who cares, man? It's so solid, like, you know what I mean? Like keep trying, of course, but like, it's like the things that you got are so much outweighing any like little tiny nitpicking thing he might be talking about, you know?
One is a guitar player that was immediately what I was kind of infatuated in, was guitar players that could sing and perform ridiculous tasks at the guitar at the same time.
Yeah.
I'm rarely a dumbass when I finally walk up, you know, I play in bands. So when I walk up to a band I like and I want to tell them they did a good job or something, I just kind of say it and get the hell out of there. And he also played at Sokol Underground. It was around the time that live DVD came out after Fires. And oh my, I sounded like a fucking idiot. I was just, hey, I saw you got a second guitar player. I mean, you don't need one, but it's cool that you did. I think that's probably what I said to him.
Yeah. I'm sure he appreciated it, you know? Yeah.
But that being said, Sulynn, you're an amazing addition to the band. And I like that it is 4 pieces, but you're able to work cohesively back and forth with Chris, where you almost turn into the same guitar occasionally and then step back out. And it kind of honors 3-piece Propagandhi in a way when it needs to be there, which I think is super important for the diversity of your sound over the years.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool, thanks. Yeah, that's a cool way of putting it. Thinking of like it kind of channeling like the original like vision of the band as a 3-piece and how it morphs into that. I really like that. That's pretty cool. So
thank you.
Yeah, it's
well, and to add politically and socially to that, I kind of wanted to talk about the song Tartuffe on Victory Lap. When I first listened to Propagandhi, they were the only punk band that talked about LGBTQ rights, for example. They were the only band that stuck up or even mentioned persons of color playing music. And at the time for me, and what music was accessible to me at the time, not only were they the only ones talking about it, but they were representing groups that they weren't even a part of in this dialogue. And so I kind of wanted to talk about that song in particular, the subject of male privilege and toxic masculinity, and the fact that there are, thousands of members of the LGBTQ community that are in punk rock bands now talking about these things. And so now Todd and Chris can almost take a step back when it comes to representing those ideals. What does that mean to you as a Propagandhi fan and now member? And how do you feel kind of carrying that torch forward?
As far as how it makes me feel, like it just feels nice to be in a band where like that's where the morals align. Like I just feel like even like before I joined the band, my own experience in playing previous bands, like didn't feel like the full package in a way of like, okay, yeah, like the music's cool, but fuck, like lyrics are like, like, oh, the person's writing them like the day we're recording. That fucking sucks, And like, what's funny is like, I think of like a band like Propagandhi is like, that's the fucking standard. Like, that's what you should aim for in being like a musician, is that much like attention to details and that much care about the delivery in a technical sense and in a structural senses, like in terms of the record, even the specific songs, and then the content and the delivery of the content being like clever and like catchy with it. But definitely like, yeah, it feels nice to be like, I'm playing, even though I'm not singing, I'm playing something where like it's what's projecting outward as a message. I feel fucking great being part of that, being under that umbrella. I mean, like, fuck yeah, like this is what needs to be said in this broad of like an audience. And so, I used to have bands where I'm like, I'd almost like feel embarrassed. I'd be like, fuck, like this is not how I feel, I'm just like, yeah, I'm like, I like the music, but it just never felt like a shoe fit in its entirety, so it just feels nice to like have that and feel like it's like a message that not only I can trust, but it's like it challenges me and people, and it's beyond just like scrapping some words like 5 minutes before you have to record them for live.
No, I think we've all played in those bands before where the guy said, "It's punk rock, dude. It doesn't matter."
Yeah. It doesn't matter. I've heard that one before and was like, eh.
But among, at a time where so many people are speaking out on the right side of history, given everything that's going on in the United States, especially, I personally, and Todd, if you kind of want to reflect on this, as an ally to all of these good things, I've almost felt like it's kind of my moment to just completely step back and being like, I want their voices to be louder than mine. I want to, show solidarity, but it's not my time to talk anymore.
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't, the only thing is sometimes I find like especially as you get older, you feel like you could step back, but now is a dangerous time in history, So you don't want to be like, okay, I'm stepping back now that, you know what I mean? Now that things have gotten crazy, So it's like at the same time as where like, you don't want to feel like you're trying to like be the figure point of something, but like, I don't know if now is the time to actually step back per se, you know what I mean? Like, but yeah, and even back like when Propagandhi was introducing like those ideas to people, like there was Team Dresch, Tribe 8, Go, like all kinds of bands with LGBT people in them putting it forth. It's just they just were a little less mainstream than Propagandhi, who ended up on that, So like there was bands, there was Downcast, Born Against, a whole bunch of bands, Spitboy, Anti-Schism, like I would say there's a whole bunch. It's just Propagandhi just was a little maybe even more mainstream sounding, so it kind of took the attention from, or not took the attention from, but like got its own attention for what it was,
Yeah, of course. And bumfuck little town, I had an anti-homophobic shirt with Propagandhi logo on it. And I would, I had kids stop me in class and say, well, what is that? What's this about? And I'd have to have this really adult conversation with a very uneducated rural kid. And I guess it's amazing in some ways how far society has moved forward in the right direction when it comes to some of those things. But I just, when I think of your band and the place that it is in my heart, I always think about moments like that regarding those issues and stuff. So
actually, like when I moved from Regina to Winnipeg, like it was the singer of there was a column by the singer of Go, but I thought it was a column by the singer of No for an Answer. It was my favorite band at the time, one of them. He had a column about coming out as gay. I thought it was the singer of No for an Answer, so I was like, oh, and it was a really well-written article. Later on, I found out it was by Mike Bullshit of Go. I just read the column wrong or the title on the column. Then I started listening to Go, and they became one of my favorite bands. They're completely amazing if you ever hear it. And then it was the Propagandhi cassette with Homophobes, and that was like almost the first things I heard in my life that were counter to the general kind of homophobic way of thinking. So yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, and I've tried to explain to people in their mid-20s that like homophobia was actually kind of a standard part of like 90s comedy. It was
like Three's Company even.
Yeah.
So much. Like even, I mean, think of like anytime like someone showed up, even like there was like, let's say trans people, like they were like, a guy shows up in a fucking wig and it's like instant make fun of and laugh, It's just like conditioned. Like you laugh at a guy who's like effeminate, or like, and there's just so much like name calling, like the language too is just like so fucking homophobic. What's crazy is to think when I was in school, like there was like a time when people would just, the equivalent of saying like that's lame, you'd just be like that's gay, and how normalized that was. Yeah. Like I said it, and I'm just like, what the fuck? Like that's insane.
Interestingly, that was even saying that was almost like tongue in cheek, because by then people knew better a little bit. You know what I mean? So it's like it's completely homophobic in a way that people thought they were beyond homophobia and still saying it. You know what I mean? It's such a weird.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's that era. It's like, so there's the 80s where everyone's completely serious. And then like your era where people are doing it almost semi-sarcastically in a way, like they know better, but they're still doing it. Like that's how ingrained it is.
I don't think like it was actually still okay. Like there wasn't that many like.
Yeah, maybe you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, like I think it was still meant like, no, gay is stupid, gay is dumb. Like it was still like a.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Like I remember the first like gay kid I knew, like it was like seemingly like open, and fuck, he got like berated one day. He got switched to a class, like out of a class. Yeah, it was like, so I think around that it's like it was still pretty bad. I think maybe just like following me, it started kind of like when it trickled away, like it got better, but I don't know, whatever. It's an interesting thing. It could be a regional thing too, Florida.
Probably. And the memory is a sad thing anyway. I probably have no idea.
Yeah, me neither.
but I like the feeling of the 80s to me. It could be just personally too, right? Because I moved from Regina to Winnipeg. But I got this guy sawing some other. Can you hear that?
Yeah, a little bit, but it's not a big deal.
Yeah. Like to me, when I think of the 80s, like how I fit into the 80s, it's completely insane and pretty sad.
Elaborate.
No.
It's another podcast in itself.
Go listen to some, or go drink some poison after.
Now I will go back to high school again just to talk. This will be a fun question, I think, to ask the two of you, since you have absolutely nothing to do with the material. If you're familiar with the instrumental Propagandhi song, Contest Song, that's on Quantity is Job Number One.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Right in the middle. If I'm not one of those weirdo Propagandhi fans that picks a side, I guess, of the sound, but if I am trying to discuss Propagandhi with someone and they start talking about the more pop punk, skate punk times, I usually direct them to that song, because to me it's always been kind of just like a mission statement of what the old Propagandhi sound was. And it was, I dug it up a little bit before this Zoom to listen to it again. And, you know, it's got all the bells and whistles to a decent Propagandhi song back then. Some hammer-ons on the guitar, Jordy doing all sorts of weird shit on the drums as he does. I was under the impression from that song at an early age that a Propagandhi song was written instrumentally, and then the words were forced into it, no matter how they needed to be forced in to make it work. And that was kind of going into the way that the lyrics were written as almost an essay sometimes. I kind of wanted to just talk about how much that might have changed or fluctuated. The band has been around too long to have a specific way that a song is written, and I understand that. But I just kind of wanted to talk about, there's elements of contest song and kind of that poppy vibe that I hear like on Zoocosis on the new record. And I really appreciated it as soon as I heard them. As the new peeps in the band, do you sometimes feel like you're holding on as a listener to some of those styles and bringing them out when they need to show? Or is it just kind of Chris and Jordy just working together and pumping stuff out the way that they have for decades?
I don't think anyone has any plan whatsoever. It's just like you just play your guitar until something catches your ear and you kind of go with it, whatever the style is, you know. Like I would say we never have a plan or something we're going for, or it's just, you know what I mean? One day you'll be listening to Sacrifice and playing your guitar, feeling riffing. One day you'll be listening to SNFU. One day you'll be listening to, I don't know, like even like You So Endure from Senegal or something. Just could be anything, you know. It's just all about just your instrument and playing, and then when you have a lyric that kind of fits, like usually a riff has a mood, and then you're like, oh, like if the riff seems dark, you kind of wait for some lyric like that to come along, and if it sounds like more of a party tune, you wait for something like that. You know, I don't really have any party tunes, but you know, if it's more upbeat, yeah, I think that's generally, I think, how it works.
Do band members show up with somewhat completed songs ever, or is it something that's typically kind of jammed out together?
It's usually like riffs strung together in some way, and then we all just kind of beat it into an order that, you know, usually whoever, like if it's my song or Chris's song, just kind of take the lead and just kind of take suggestions and from the other guy, you know, or whatever, like this, you know, like maybe you should do this again, or, you know, something like that, you know. And then just adding our own, like as soon as you start hearing drums on something, like something could completely change for the better, you know, and just start pushing you some other direction than you thought, because it sounds different than you thought, different than you imagined, which is why you play music with other people, is so, you know, so you have these other people's ideas come in.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That was what was cool, like when because you guys were like already like pretty knee deep into Victory Lap, and like, you know, you involved like me and Beeb, which is really cool, and just showing up that week when I was recording and like having like a day or something to listen to the tracks and like come up with ideas, and it's funny when I was like doing that, I was like, I don't know if these will pass. Like in a way, it's like there's things that like I'm like, I don't know if like this isn't. I don't know if this could fit a Propagandhi song, but at the same time, I had this thought where I'm like, but I think that's the point, where it's like there is never a like it needs to fit something. It is like a morphing thing, and it was cool to feel like I could bring just even a few details that felt like a little like slightly kind of different, like than maybe I'd even heard on the records, like. Kind of like I mentioned that Victory Lap, like that metal part, like the ambient thing. It was, you know, it was kind of cool to like be able to bring in something like that into the song, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
and some other stuff. Like I think I did a little slide thing in there, you know, with like a phaser on it, and it just felt fun to be like, this is awesome. This is what like I feel like musicians want. Like at least, you know, I do like an openness, like an open canvas of like, who cares? Like bring in everything you've got, like every style you like, and yeah, it's great for that.
Absolutely.
I think anything that feels like it's reaching back is just like someone's hitting some notes that are reminiscent of some other one, because like, you know what I mean? Reminiscent of some old song. It just happens to be a key or some notes because their fingers have went to these spots so many times. It's like ingrained, you know? Yeah. And
I, you know, as a listener, you know, anytime any lineup changes in any manner, as a dork that plays music, you know, it's immediately like, well, what was the contribution here? What changed? What does this new person have to offer? Today's Empires obviously was very, very different when it came out, and Todd, you were suddenly, you know, one of the co-contributors.
Yeah.
I wasn't as surprised by it than my friends, and I think it's because I had Napster and I had the Cro-Mags cover, and I think I saw the direction moving where it ended up. But Sulynn, I certainly, you know, held my ear up against the album, looking for anything that I possibly could that represented your style, and of course, as Beaver was kind of like just snuck into the band, your audition tape and everything that was associated with it was something that was really fun to follow as a fan of the band. And I guess to add on to that, there was a lot of transparency among the lineup when you were doing Failed States. A lot of videos of you playing the songs in full in your practice space and stuff like that.
Right. Yeah.
Is that something that we might see in the future? You know, when the world hopefully opens back up.
You know, we are very like people always. I think if you're not in a band, you feel like everything's calculated, or you know, like we're literally like, you know, show up on our bikes, say fucking bunch of nonsense, plug in our stuff, you know, and then like Chris will have some video or something. You guys want to film this today? No, come on. Okay, well, you know what I mean? Or like, you know what I mean? Just something like that, like
the Shreddies commercial.
Yeah. It's just, yeah. Like
I really liked. Did Chris play the solo on Super Bowl? Or sorry, the song has escaped me. But the video of Chris air guitaring to the solo of that one song on supporting cast.
Oh yeah, that's
not Super Bowl. Coach's Corner. There you go. Did he record that solo
on the record? Yeah.
Okay, so he's literally just making fun of himself.
Yeah, well, I think he's just like, the solo is like one of those, like me and him are really into solos that are like chaos solos, like like COC back in the 80s or something would have done them, you know, like where they're kind of real notes, but they're kind of more going crazy than notes, you know, like Joe Rico from Sacrifice sometimes does it. It's just like he's more interested in the chaos than the, like, it's just the vibe. It's the way you wish guitar worked when you were a kid, you know, like when I played guitar, I thought guitar solos where you just move your fingers as fast as you can everywhere and you don't give a shit, you know? And when I found out they're actual notes, I was like almost disappointed, you know? I was like, oh, this is how, you know what I mean? So then later on when you're, like, I think just how we've both always been into that, just like, yeah, run your fingers, who gives a shit, go crazy, don't care, as long as it has the vibe, you know?
Yeah,
it's kind of a solo, but it's kind of just going nuts, you know. That appeals to me for some reason.
Yeah, that shit's awesome because it gets the spirit. It's like, who cares of the notes? In a way, notes like shouldn't even matter most of the time. That's what that solo even says. Like,
yeah, and to me, I like that kind of soloing. Like you listen to so many bands, and it's like little like Iron Maiden-y scales, you know, like they sound good in Maiden because they're masters of it, but like so many bands copying that. Here's your Maiden scale, you know, like even death metal bands. It's like, what does this like happy sounding Maiden scale? Why is it in the middle of this death metal song? You know, whereas you listen to the first Deicide record or something, they're Chaos players. Deicide first record, and you'll never ever get someone like to. Like who doesn't have that vibe to be able to have that vibe. That's why those brothers were so missed when they were gone, you know, from that.
That's
band.
part of the coolness of it. It's like hard to replicate. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it becomes such an individual like imprint of the player and their hands, and exactly. I love that about that.
Yeah,
and I can hear the momentum in that coach's corner. You know, you can, and that's something as a guitar player that means a lot to me when you can kind of feel that person running 3 feet across the room as they're playing it in the studio.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Like the day I got my first guitar, I was going nuts and fell and chipped it. And I was just like, I can't believe I did. Like I was only grade 6 or something, you know. I was like, I can't believe, like when I got a guitar, I didn't want to play it. I wanted to go nuts. You know what I mean? I put on a Kiss record and just went berserk and ended up chipping my guitar the first day and broke my own heart. But
fuck, I broke my strings like immediately. Just fucking thinking like, hey, this is how I do it. It was like a guitar that was like plastic body but actual real strings.
Yeah.
This fucking was going like this because, you know, that's what Metallica was doing on TV, and I broke 2 strings.
Yeah. Don't worry. My parents are musicians, and they're super cool. And so my dad always had these guitars laying around, and they knew that if they tried to push it on me, I probably wasn't going to be into it. And so it was like, you know, In Utero came out. So of course I was like, Dad, can I borrow your Strat? I need to learn how to play it. But what I did for the first 2 years, I think, was just completely destroy the top of the guitar with a red pick.
Oh, right.
And I pretended to play it for like 2 years. And then one day I just kind of knew how to play it. If that makes sense. But that's definitely, I think, a thing for anybody that's just super passionate about learning how to do it. Is that cliche of the rock star wailing on it.
Yeah, it might not, like, it's hard to say what's a better idea, you know, to have some knowledge, or not knowledge, like, but there's something to be said for both, you know what I mean? Like, if you can add, like, I would never think that someone's going to get the best out of their life forever not trying, you know, and forever being sloppy and forever being shitty, you know. But I think there's a point in time where it could just be about the experience of, like, sometimes I'm happy that there was no adults involved in playing music with me, you know. It was all kids. It was all us doing our own thing. You know, we put a fridge in front of the door in case the cops come. They kick the door, they hit the fridge, hurt themselves. Like, that kind of thing is so much more fun. Or, you know, when your lyrics develop, like, you're not like, okay, if my teacher sees these lyrics, they're going to think I'm a moron, you know? Like, there's something to be said about just doing it, you know? Like, the void of adults. But you're going to be shitty for another 20 years than if you were doing it with adults.
Yeah, that's true. And, you know, I guess since I have the opportunity to say it to you, Todd, your bass solo on the bridge of Unscripted Moment, it proves that you're definitely not sloppy. That is fucking precision.
Yeah, I practice a lot with the metronome, everything, but I just always try to remember that the end goal isn't this stuff, you know. The end goal isn't the metronome and the scales, you know. The end goal is to have it sound more powerful when you go nuts.
Oh, certainly. Now, you have a lot of really good moments. I won't bore our 12 YouTube viewers with my favorite Todd bass moment. But you're both incredibly talented at what you do. So nice work. To touch on politics just for a moment, Trudeau's obviously not squeaky clean by any stretch of the imagination. I watched George Bush speak today at John Lewis's memorial on the news, and it's funny. I said, "Well, I forgot how bad George Bush is at public speaking." But then I thought about where we are and where things are in the United States. So I just kind of wanted to talk about that a little bit. Being a politically driven punk band during a Trump era, in some ways, it's like a treat, a really sad, unfortunate treat. But at the same time, there's plenty of corruption and horrible things that have been going on with our most progressive-ish Democratic candidates across North America. So I just kind of wanted to talk about that.
Well, I guess from like if you think like since we've been a band, there's the genocide in Rwanda, Bosnia, like all over, Iraq wars, 2 of them, everything. And and we watch closely and read, like I've read so many books about genocide and that it's almost like, have I ruined my own mind forever? And like I've known like all this time people coming from war zones, because I like volunteered, then I had a job with refugee kids and stuff. And it's almost like now it's like the only difference is that it's like closer to being able to touch me. You know what I mean? Like personally, but like we've been dealing with even all kinds of racists and stuff for so long. It's like to me, this is just like it was inevitable. Like you see the policies and all that. It's just like I knew, like I remember thinking like years ago, even before I was in Propagandhi, writing songs, thinking like these are the type of songs that someday you can get become a victim of violence, because of it. And I was aware of it, even touring in the States, like back in the day. Like I know that this was dangerous. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like I had like people throwing me on the stage, pushing me off the stage. Like even in the early 90s. So it's like I guess all I'm saying is like we've been watching so closely. This is just a crazy, like it's just closer to home, but it's something that I have always expected or suspected could happen. To see it come to fruition is just like it's almost hard for it to change the lyrics because we've been watching closely this whole time.
Yeah, agreed. And for me, Empires came out my senior year of high school, which was right after 9/11, small town. And that, I'm not here to promote myself here, but This Is Your Life. That's what that song means to me is it's, every guy that I graduated high school with that, stood in front of our entire town and said, because of what happened in New York, my parents told me that I'm going into the military, right after high school. And now they're on their Facebooks, arguing that Barack Obama ruined their marriage, Yeah. It's a really sad thing to see happen to people that, I saw their entire lives change because of a decision that I don't even think really they had any say in.
Right. Yeah. People who spent the night, like they spent the late 80s, 90s, 2000s and 10s, all drinking, and now their body's shut down. They wake up, turn on their computer, they're all into politics. Oh my God, there's no such thing as COVID. Yeah, it was an extreme example, but you know what I mean? Like they just don't understand literally anything because they're like their brain is a pickle and it's been drunk for the last 30 years.
That's true. Yeah, cue the guy in the camouflage coveralls on Facebook.
Yeah, and sunglasses.
Yeah. Do you have anything to add to that, Sulynn?
I mean, all of these things have existed, and I think it's part of at least American culture to really put a nice cover on it. Like, we're, first world country. Like it's just like this kind of thing doesn't happen to us, and just kind of put every kind of issue under the rug. And now it's like you have all these protests where they've already been complaining about, let's say, police brutality, one issue there, for years. And there's been so many victims of that where, people are fed up with just like this rerun of lives lost for fucking nothing, just being shot through your window when while you're sleeping or playing video games or wearing a hoodie. Like, all of the examples are just, it's baffling to think like that's what caused that person to die and then nothing's happening. And I think it's always existed. It's like America has always been a violent place. It has been founded on violence, but it's always been displayed in a different light. And it's currently not. It's being shown for what it always has been. And even people too, talking about the internet. It's like all these people who are, it's like, or to be surprised, we're like, oh wow, that person's like really vocal in like a really fucked up way. It's like they finally are, the internet has finally like shown them like where it's like all these people who are maybe on the street seen as like these kind of civilized people, they're fucking not, like deep down they're not, and they want the worst for you, or they don't give a shit about other people. So, and it's very negative sounding, but it is a negative thing, and I think it's showing the transparency of there's so much hatred over bullshit, like something like, let's say, race. Like I had this conversation, I think I've even had this with you, Todd, before, where, my sister and I come from the same parents. We both visually look very different. Like, she looks more Asian, she's light skinned. And to me, I'm like, that is such proof that like race really doesn't matter. Like it's nothing. Like, in a way, race is nothing. Like but it's like all this focus on it. And again, just like this, like the flawedness of logic and the logic that humans create, and this arguing. It's just that, like the history of violence with America and just the internet kind of, our history with the internet has led to this weird pinnacle of like destruction, So it's yeah, like kind of like what Todd said. It's like, not surprised. Like, this is where it was going.
Yeah,
and it's transparent.
Yeah, it's wild.
It's crazy, right? It's just, I mean, it's obviously exhausting, like this idea of like, we want things back to normal, but at the same time, it's like this things sometimes do need to happen because certain people's normal is having to and be scared of like being killed by a cop and then like, and being just another number, just another person. So like some people's normal is not as privileged to be as safe as others. So, so what can you do,
Yeah, like if you're on minimum wage and expecting that you might get killed by the cops on the way home, it's like you're less likely to want it to go back to normal than me sitting here in Winnipeg in my house, I'll play my guitar and then I'll do this, and then I'll walk around and then, you know what I mean? Yeah. So it's pretty easy for me to sit here and want to go like, wow, I wish this would go back to normal so I could, you know what I mean? Go into the store more. Or something.
I watched today I watched a clip of a white guy and had a Black Lives Matter sign. He took it to what is kind of known as the most racist spot in the United States. It's this rural community in Arkansas. And it's a short video. It's horribly depressing. But for me and from where I'm from and from what I've heard over the years traveling and, going to the South, it's kind of a wake-up call, I think, for some people that don't really understand just how fucking horrible things actually are at a certain point.
I think like sometimes being on the side of like getting like racist or like sexist comments and like I'd kind of like just like in a nonchalant way be like, oh, that sucked, like someone was an asshole to me, and a response being like, you sure? Like it's like there's a lot of that, and I think it's like in this time it's like, no, you're fucking sure that that's what was delivered to you. Like those videos really do show the fact that yes, people are treating people Like, there is no such thing as subtle racism. You know what I mean? Like, even a comment, it's not subtle. It's racism. Maybe the delivery is not like a punch in the face, but it's like, it is everywhere, you know? So it is, in a way, I guess the positive side is that it's good to be like, yeah, everyone, like, this is what certain people endure. Like, a lot of times, again, it's just at an intense point right now, you know? But,
yeah, because if you think all this time when people have been pretending there's not a racist problem, but there's like black people maybe in that town or whatever that was in the video you're talking about, like for them to be like, no one understands this, you know, like that would be, I would say, more frustrating, you know, like at least when it's this out in the open, yeah, people can say, yeah, look at what's happening here. Everyone can see it. You know, the president's not even pretending not to be a Nazi, really. It's like,
yeah, that's insane.
Like it's so beyond like it's crazy. You'd think the 80s were crazy, but like if someone in the 80s would have came out and said, like, you know, I like Nazis are evil, everyone would have went like, what? Like every single person in all the world in the 80s, except for Nazis, knew that Nazis were dumb. You know what I mean? Like, because everyone's uncles fought them in World War II. You know, either their grandpas or their uncles spent World War II fighting that. You know, now all those people are dead, and everyone's too old to even remember what that was. You know, like it's like for me, when Rain and Blood by Slayer came out, I was closer to World War II than I am from Rain and Blood to now. So it's like, you know what I mean? You put it that way and you're like, people understood, now they don't, I think.
Wow, that's depressing.
Yeah.
Been a really good Zoom, though.
Oh, good.
Thanks for having us. It's good.
Of course.
Yeah,
And, you know, I got to say, can we count on another Propagandhi record in 5 or 8 years or whatever?
Oh, yeah, for sure. There's riffs cooking. They're cooking.
Yeah. I've always appreciated the band's ability to not rush it, because I think that it's paying off.
Yeah, good. Yeah, sometimes it pays to not rush it.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for your time today. Cheers. And
nice hanging out with you too, Sulynn, today.
Yeah, fuck. We haven't seen each other. I haven't even seen your face in a long time.
Yeah.
Well, hey, how's it going? Oh, Maurice is here.
Yeah, say hi to Marisa. Marisa, how's it going?
Yeah. That's all right.
Your new pad's looking good.
Partner.
Hi, Todd.
Your pad's looking good. I like it.
Oh, yeah.